Israel wants to escalate this.
The USA will defend Israel.
Israel's a little tiny piece of strip.
To really hurt the Israelis for the sake of Palestine, they would have done this a long time ago.
Can Iran defeat Israel?
Even Joe Biden, eventually, he's going to start calling for a ceasefire.
So you're saying Israel and Iran are going to go to war? But they're just a strip of land. How do they have that much power? I can't.
It's not, because they know the USA needs to keep them there. Everyone understands these regimes are American puppets. Everyone.
Yeah, but they must have some iman in them. Like seeing everything. Okay, some people maybe not. I feel like the biggest pacifiers, and this might be a bit controversial, but the biggest pacifiers are the... Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Opinion, where we discuss what the Ummah needs, not just what we want to hear. I'm your host, Saif Abu Yusuf, and we are joined with our resident political analyst, Yusuf Abu Sinan. Before we begin, I have a request for all of you. I can't even begin to describe how important it is to have your support. It means that we'll be able to improve every single podcast going forward. So grab your miswaks and your chais and jump in the comment sections with your support, feedback, and even criticism. Look, a lot has happened over the last 6 months, and more so in the last 2 weeks with Iran escalating this war, if you want to call it that. Now, let's take it in stages, yeah? The first thing that we need to come to grips with is Israel. Now, a lot of people are claiming that they've committed a genocide against the Palestinian people. Now, the question I want to ask you is that, have they committed a genocide? Or are they just trying to pacify the Palestinians?
So, on this specifically, I'd say it's the same thing. Because the genocide, the mass slaughter, killing them all or forcing them all out of Palestine is more or less the same thing as pacifying the Palestinians, because they are a people of resistance. And they've been resisting this occupation for over 70 years. So pacifying them, i.e. disarming them, making them give up the fight, just roll over for the Israelis, is the same thing as genocide in this situation, because that's who they are. They are resisting, and the Israelis are trying to make them stop by killing them this time, just making them give up hope in any kind of solution.
It seems like America and Israel are completely separate. When there are claims that Israel is the 51st state of America, are they separate or are they united?
So the Zionist occupation was created essentially by the British first, and the USA inherited it. But the USA inherited it with its geostrategic merits and has funded it and bankrolled it in such a way that no one else has done before. And they've more or less become enmeshed together, in my view, the political classes in both countries. So for the USA...
What are you trying to say? The Jews run the world?
No. So for the USA, it is such an essential colony, forward base, military base, aircraft carrier, that it cannot be... They just can't let it go. So it's more than just an ally. It won't be the 51st state, practical reasons more or less.
Yeah, of course.
And the Israelis have their own opinions on what they want to do as a regional power. The USA is still the superpower. So they have a box and a framework underneath which the Israelis can do whatever they want, so long as they don't break it. So yeah, the USA is the senior in this partner, but Israel is not just a junior partner. It's a lot more than that.
But the way Israel speaks, it doesn't act like they're underneath America. They act like they're completely on level terms. And sometimes it goes against what America wants. So how do we make sense of that?
This is what I mean. It's the same political class. They're not a subservient foreign nation that was overpowered by conquest and now they're just, a client state.
But how about every single penny that comes to Israel comes from America? Like, how can they act bigger than their masters? That I can't fathom, unless maybe you bring this whole Illuminati thing into it.
No. It's they are basically Westerners living over there. Yeah. So the same you expect from Western politicians, expect from them as well. They have their own ambitions and they try to time it right. So they will do things when the USA is busy with elections.
But they're just a strip of land. How do they have that much power? I can't.
It's not, because they know the USA needs to keep them there. America, without America, they're nothing. But they know the USA won't let go.
So it's just pushing it. It's pushing the boundaries, seeing how much that we can get away with.
Yeah, more or less, that's how they behave. And eventually the USA reins them in. But the way the USA reins them in is more or less through carrot and stick, through using other diplomatic levers it has in the region that forces Israeli politicians to realize, okay, this government of ours right now is going too far. Everything is just going, wrong, and we need to stop.
So now
That's how the USA brings the Israelis back in. It doesn't like punish them.
So now, looking at both of these states now, the US and Israel, what do they actually want with the Palestinians? Do they both want to pacify the Palestinians? Because it seems like one of them's committing genocide.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. Pacify is the perfect word. For the Israelis, pacification is the Palestinians stop resisting. The Palestinians stop fighting. They accept the occupation or they leave. Yeah, and whether that means the American plans of 2 states and how all the other Arab regimes get involved and buy off Palestinian leadership. If that works, cool. If it doesn't work, we're just going to kill them all off. For the Israelis, it's the same thing. Yeah, so long as they go, so long as they stop resisting, so long as they just accept the occupation, that's pacification. For the Americans, it's much bigger. The Americans is they do not want a rival in the region, a truly independent state to be established that will then rival the USA internationally. So for the USA, this issue is same as the Arab Spring, same problem. Same as the protests that were happening in Iran a few years ago, same problem. Which is, okay, but if that succeeds, who's going to be in power afterwards? Will they work with us or against us? So for the USA,
it's a bit of unknown. They don't want to go into that.
For the USA, this architecture, this status quo is what they protect. So pacifying the Palestinians is getting them to accept a 2-state, not liberation, which is what the Palestinians want.
Of course.
Yeah, removing the occupation, no. Accept this. See, that's pacifying them, having them accept something less, disarming them from the spirit of independence, which is what the Arab Spring was. It was spring of, we're going to get rid of these regimes. Everyone understands these regimes are American puppets. Everyone. What people in Egypt were saying, once Mubarak's gone, then we march to Palestine. Same in Syria, because this is, we see that the regimes in the region, Israel being a colony, which is where Westerners run it, but the other regimes, they're run by puppets. And it's this someone that will break out of the system we put in place. For the USA, that's a problem. So yeah, they do want to pacify the Palestinians, not the way the Israelis want to do it.
So there is some difference, but I see a bigger difference in when America always says that we don't want a regional war. Now, in the last 2 weeks, we saw Israel actually bomb an Iranian embassy or consulate in Syria. It seems like Israel wants to escalate this war. It wants it to turn into a regional war where the US is saying, no, we don't want a regional war. Now, on this issue, it looks like they want 2 different things.
Oh, yeah. So if we go back before October 7th, Netanyahu's government tried to do this a few times.
Attacking Iranian nuclear facilities and military bases.
Yeah, or their proxies in Iraq, for example, or in Syria as well. They hit Syria a few times as well. And they did a few raids in Nablus and other areas in Jenin. They were trying to provoke a response from the Palestinians in order to carry out an operation of this scale to unify the country, because his government was very weak. And when that didn't work, when he didn't get a reaction from the Palestinians, they started attacking the Iranians, Iranian proxies in different areas, because then if the Iranian threat appears, at least we can unite the people with a common enemy. That's Netanyahu's government's thinking, because they were very weak.
But aren't they afraid
Always.
of Iran actually doing something like we saw recently? I know it was...
Yeah, so that's other politicians now. So Netanyahu, the calculation he's making is Iran's not really going to go that far. But if we can provoke something, that looks real enough, then the USA, because of public opinion, will have to stand by us. The Israelis, Netanyahu, this kind of regime, the Likud party, it's the tactic is, if we drag America into a war, then we can do whatever we want.
So you're saying that Israel didn't think Iran is going to respond when it attacks its embassy in another country. That's a provocation of war.
No. I'm saying Netanyahu wanted that to happen. He wanted the response from Iran. But his calculation was, it's not going to hurt.
So you're saying it's
But it'll be enough.
You said the whole thing was planned.
No, what's this? It's about watching how the Iranians behave and how the Americans behave. Yeah, and then separating what Netanyahu wants and because he's trying to save his career as well. Yeah.
So you're telling me that he wanted
to provoke Iran even before the war even began.
That could escalate into a war just to save his own life.
He wanted to provoke a war.
Political life.
Yeah, he wanted to provoke a war even before this happened 2 years ago. For the last 4 or 5 years, he's been attacking the Iranians in Syria. He has.
So you're telling me they just treat Iran as a complete pawn that, yeah, you know what? If we tell Iran not to act, they're not going to act. If we tell them, you know what, you can act this time, they're going to act. That's what you're seeming.
No,
that's what it sounds like you're making Iran.
And Netanyahu's is trying to force Iran into a position where it has to respond. It has to respond by all of these provocations and basically insults to the national pride of Iran.
But it's been going on for a year.
Yeah, it's been going
Why?
it's been going on for, no, what has been going on for, yeah?
Israel has been attacking Iranian sites in Syria and in Iraq.
Oh, this is for more than that, longer.
Yeah, so why now? Why now does Iran respond?
This is the thing. Netanyahu knows that Iran will only respond when the USA allows it to respond. He knows.
But you're making
he
it
knows,
seem like some mad conspiracy.
He knows that the
Lately.
Iranians cannot afford to go to war with America. He knows that the Iranians cannot afford to go to war with America. He knows the Americans don't want to get involved in a war in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but can he push the Iranian leadership, to a position where, in front of his own people, to pacify his own people, to pacify his own followers, to pacify all the proxies it's set up in the region, that it has to do something in response. He's just forced. It has to do something in response. Then the Iranians will let the Americans know what they're gonna do and how and when and so on and so forth, so that at least it's controlled. It doesn't end up in a confrontation with the USA. And they've done this before. They've done this before when Qasem Soleimani was murdered.
Let me clarify. So what you're saying is that Israel provoked Iran for
Israel provoked Iran to force a war
Mm-hmm.
where the USA will be forced to join. Because US boots on the ground will help the Israelis achieve what they want to achieve.
So you're saying Israel and Iran are going to go to war?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is what Netanyahu wants to achieve. He's not Allah, bro. Just because he wants it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
No. So Iran's responded to Israel. Yeah?
Yeah.
And Israel wanted that to happen.
Israel wanted more. No. Netanyahu wanted the war to happen and he wanted the USA to join him in the war.
And the US have said that we're not going to join them.
No. Yes.
I'm still a bit confused.
Okay. So we'll start again, yeah? We have three different players here.
Yeah.
Iran, Israel, America, and
Mhm.
we're only talking about the governments,
Okay.
current regimes. Okay. Iran has a problem, which is it keeps getting hit by the Israelis in Syria and Iraq for the last 4 or 5, for a long time.
For what? For what reason?
This is the problem Iran has, yeah?
Mhm.
And now, because of that, and this is just provocations, there's a lot of pressure on them, the leaders now, to respond.
Iranian leaders.
Iranian leader to respond because this is looking bad. And they need to pacify their own people who could topple them in the revolutionary guards, for
They've already
example.
got domestic issues going on.
Yeah, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so they have to do this, and this happened before when Soleimani was murdered, and they had to do something. They had to respond. He was the leader of the Revolutionary Guard, so they did something in response to try and posted it online and national television and all these big speeches. Look, we have responded and all the kind of stuff, and we took revenge. That's the situation they have. So the Israelis have just attacked them, a few weeks ago, in Damascus, and now there's growing pressure on them to do a response. The Israelis, current regime, have been trying to provoke a war with Iran because they want to pull Iran into a war which the USA will be forced to then join.
I can't understand this point.
Why?
Why?
The USA will defend Israel.
Israel's a little tiny piece of strip.
But he knows...
Look at the size of Iran.
It's a war with America. That's the point. He wants to force America to join the war.
And America's made its stance so clear that it's not going to join. It's not going to join any war when it comes to Iran. They said that if you go and do a retaliatory strike.
No. What's the calculation the Israeli government's making? If we push it too far,
they're gonna have to join.
Yeah, they're gonna have to join. If it's gonna be a war of existence, they have to come and step in to protect us.
But then that goes against what US. That goes against US foreign policy.
So the USA then has to decide. Now let's talk about the third player.
Sure.
The third player. Now the USA he has to make a decision. All right, this has happened.
Goes against the interest in the region.
We don't want a war with Iran.
That goes against the interest.
We're trying to keep Iran and Israel balanced, and Turkey and Egypt and Saudi Arabia. They can have their little spats with each other, but not one of them should be able to overcome the other one. Okay? We are busy with China. Don't want a war in the Middle East. Okay? But if Israel's going to be wiped off the map, we have to step in. So then what do? You use it to scare the other Israeli politicians to say, look at what Netanyahu, this crazy man's doing. He's going to bring Iran to fight you. we're not going to support you. We can't afford it. We're not interested in this war. Timing it with the protest that's going on in Tel Aviv, and the fact that some Israeli politicians have gone to meet they've gone to meet the Americans, part of the government, the cabinet, without Netanyahu's permission, is they're playing on this. We can influence the Israelis, same way Israelis can influence American politicians, to get this man overthrown using this Iran threat. So Netanyahu used it to provoke a war to force America in, and the American response is to use the same thing to scare the other politicians to push this guy out of power. Because come on, are you guys ready to fight Iran? Look, we protected you. Yeah, but we're not interested in a fight. If you keep doing these provocations, you're on your own.
So this could go left or right now.
So it's almost like a game of poker. It's all about the poker face.
Right.
And the Americans are busy with the elections. So for the USA, even Joe Biden, eventually, he's going to start calling for a ceasefire. Even if he doesn't use those words specifically, because this has to stop.
All right, let's bring in these other actors that I can't understand as well, the Houthis. Now, there's a lot of Iranian links to the Houthis and Hezbollah. Again, they call them Iranian proxies. Now, when it comes to Iran's response to the consulate attack that happened in Damascus, if Iran wanted to attack Israel, why didn't they now use their proxies in Iraq, Hezbollah, and the Houthis in Yemen if they really wanted to hurt Israel?
So I think the real question is, if Iran wanted to really hurt the Israelis for the sake of Palestine, they would have done this a long time ago, and they would have done it directly.
Directly? What do you mean?
These proxies do not compare to the Iranian army or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
IRGC,
Yeah. So these are nuisances. They hurt, they bite, but that's all they do. The Houthis, Hezbollah, Al-Hashd al-Shabi, and so on and so forth. These are small proxies. They hurt, they bite, they sting, but they are not gonna threaten your existence. But the Iranian army can. So this is the first principle. The Iranian regime is a secular nation state. It uses Islam and the Shia Madhab when it's suitable for them. Otherwise, it's not. It's just a nation state like all the others. They have national interests. They have regional interests, and nothing's about Palestine. They responded for their own national pride. Yeah, like with Soleimani. It's got nothing to do with Palestine. If they wanted to do something for Palestine, we would have done it a long time.
But clearly,
Pacification. This is the point. The people who join these militias, they join in the name of Palestine because the Iranians call themselves the axis of resistance.
Yeah, but before you get to that, what I can't fathom, when you look at the map and you look at where Iran has positioned these proxies, it seems like they're all just enclaving Palestine. It seems like the prized possession is Palestine. You got Hamas, which is a semi-proxy, if you want to call it that. You got Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon. You got the Houthis in the south. And then you got Iraq. You got the proxies in Iraq. It seems like everything is centered around this land of Palestine. What does Iran want to do with the land of Palestine? What does Iran want to do with this whole region? Why are they setting up these proxies, putting time and money into these proxies? Clearly, they have some ambition in the region.
Only the ambition is to be the dominant regional power.
What?
So
they want to expand?
Not like in the old Persian Empire way. Actually, it's kind of similar to the old Persian Empire when they set up the satrapies. Sorry,
forget that.
Diversion.
Come and talk English.
But it's client states. That's what Iran is trying to establish. Client states. They've been trying to do this for a while. So these proxies are their ticket to taking over the government. Hezbollah controls the majority of the Lebanese government. De facto rulers in the south. They've broken the state. They control the south of Lebanon. The Houthis control the north of Yemen, and they're again embroiled in a civil war to take control of the entirety of Yemen. The Hashd in Iraq are in the government. They have their own militia. The Iranians pretty much control the Iraqi government. And there's Bashar al-Assad in Syria, who was forced because of the revolution to seek further assistance from Iran, which further brought him into the Iranian sphere further and further until he's lost any kind of semi-autonomy he had before. So if they could do this in other areas, they would. It's difficult to break into Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and.
So you're saying point blank, these proxies are not for Palestine, not about Palestine, not about the liberation of Palestine.
No. But part of the recruitment drive is we are the axis of resistance with the people who've been funding Hamas for a long time, and obviously funding Hezbollah, and the rhetoric's about Palestine. So now if this happens and then you don't do anything about Palestine, what
It's all
happens?
about saving face, basically.
Yeah, these people then they stop looking at you.
So the people are sincere. The people want to do something.
The rank and file, yeah. So letting the Ansar Allah fight, letting
Ansar
Hezbollah
Allah?
fight, the Houthis, and letting Hezbollah fight. It was all about letting them. They need to vent, letting them off steam. But then they control what they do. Hezbollah is so close. Hezbollah hurt the Israelis a lot in 2006, but in this time round they've just been fighting like communication wires and irrelevant infrastructure in the north. But they've been putting a lot in the media like we've achieved this, we've achieved that, because this is just saving face. They've barely done anything, and the Houthis, they're too far to do anything. So they've been do whatever you want, knowing that we know that you're not going to do much.
All right. So then the question on a lot of people's minds here is, after what happened recently with the Iranian missiles and the drones, can Iran defeat Israel?
I think Jordan can defeat Israel, let alone Iran.
But the way Israel just literally just fling some of these missiles off.
No, the USA did that, not Israel.
Okay, Israel did it with the US's help, though.
No, the USA.
They have this Iron Dome. You know, they
the American Patriot missiles.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they flinged away these missiles like it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me Jordan can defeat Israel?
Yeah, it was a ground invasion, not through like throwing missiles. You want to control land, you send your land forces. You don't just fight by throwing missiles. There's no attempt to liberate Palestine. If you want to liberate Palestine, you're moving your troops on the ground.
And you think Iran can do that like that?
I said Jordan can do that.
So, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Turkey,
Lebanon doesn't exist.
Saudi Arabia, yeah. All these countries, can they comfortably remove the occupation in Palestine?
100%. The thing that they need to be wary about is the USA.
So why don't they? Because of the USA.
Well, the first thing is that these regimes are puppets for the USA. Egypt and Jordan and...
Yeah, but they must have some iman in their heart. Like, seeing everything... So, okay, some people maybe not. But look, at the end of the day, they represent Muslims in that country.
No.
Look
Represent.
at Turkey.
What, represent.
Listen.
How do you use the word represent in dictatorships?
Look, Erdogan, for instance. Let's take one.
Okay.
Yeah, Erdogan. He recites Quran publicly. You know, he came in as an Islamist. You know, like he's close to Quran, and he gives all the talk when it comes to Palestine. You're telling me that there's nothing in his heart that thinks, you know what, I'm gonna move my army in to liberate Palestine.
Well, whatever's in his heart doesn't matter. Turkey is a secular nation state. It's got even fewer Sharia laws in it than Egypt does, by the way. I'm not even sure if there's a single Sharia law in Turkish law or constitution. Egypt does have some. It will make Sisi like more closer to implementing Sharia.
They could all be liars, bro.
There's no claim anyway in the first place from
bro.
Turkey. No, there's no claim from Turkey.
Let's talk about like a crusade. He was going to bring a crusade.
Yeah, but there's no claim of being an Islamic state. There's no claim about unity. There's no claim about any of these things. People juxtapose. People claim. They put words in his mouth. Yeah. It's Turkish national interests. That's what it is.
One of the brothers over here claimed he was a mujaddid.
Cool. Now here's a Turkish national interest. If you still have any doubt, look what he's done for Palestine now. Nothing exactly. Turkish national interests, Iranian national interests, Egyptian national interests. Sisi doesn't think about Egyptian national interests, but this is how these countries function. Don't think they are nation states. It's all nationalism.
I get it. But they are nation states full of Muslims.
Yes. And
some of these countries must be thinking the way Israel and the US, they flinged away these Iranian missiles. Turkey must be thinking, we can't do nothing.
No,
there must be an element of that.
There will be people in the Turkish military, there will be politicians who've thought about this and it's crossed their mind. And yes, everyone's going to think, well, yeah, obviously, you're not going to fight Israel by itself. It's going to be America. Well, the first thing the USA did after 7th of October was to send these aircraft carriers. That wasn't to support the Israelis in any way. They didn't add anything to the Israeli military capability. It was just a message to everyone around, don't get involved. It was a message to the Egyptian army, to the Turkish army, to the Iranians, to the Jordanians, the Saudis, anyone who thought about maybe we fight, or maybe in order to do that we need to topple their regimes. Yeah, this is what America's really afraid of.
But it sounds like you're saying they can't be defeated because they have America. That's what you're saying.
In unity, there's strength. Yeah, and the problem we have is almost divided. So if we stop thinking about how weak we are individually towards the USA right now,
Mm.
and we think about how strong we would be if we were united, then things will be different. And this is why the USA needs to pacify the Palestinians before people start thinking along these lines. When
I'm a bit
people-
confused what you're saying. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
USA thinks bigger than Israelis or everyone else.
Of course.
Remember Arab
the whole
Spring?
world. Yeah. Yeah.
It's when people become fed up with these governments and how they are just not doing anything for Palestine, on top of what they're doing in their own countries of tyranny, repression, destroying the economy, and living these lavish lives. And
It seems like
Secularization.
You're these people though. You're
What are these
sympathizing with the
people?
Muslim rulers.
no, talking about the people now.
Mm.
They will become fed up and they will attempt to overthrow these governments. They will become fed up and naturally they will move towards Islam. And Islam does not believe in these borders. If you have an independent Islamic regime that unifies these countries, this is the game over for the USA. So the quicker this war stops, the quicker the Palestinians themselves give up the fight and accept a two-state solution, the easier it becomes to look to everyone else in the region and say, okay, everyone, calm down. Problem solved. There's no need to get upset about anything. There's no need for regime change. You don't need to restart the revolutions again. And like, for example, in Syria, there's calls to like resume and spark the revolution again. Everything's fine now. For the USA, it has to do it quickly because individually, yeah, it can deal with these countries. But a united Islamic front, nothing can stop that.
Okay. Look, we talked a lot about pacifying. Iran's been pacifying its people. The USA and Israel wants to pacify the Palestinians. Look, I'll give you my own view. Yeah. Stuff that I've been seeing on Twitter or X, what you want to call it. I feel like the biggest pacifiers, and this might be a bit controversial, but the biggest pacifiers are the socialists, the ones on the left. The ones, look, I don't want to name any names, yeah, but they are and have been calling for a ceasefire for the longest time. They've been calling for a two-state solution for the longest time. I feel like they are hijacking the Islamic cause on Palestine. What's your thoughts?
I think there's a very large, loose coalition of activists. I wouldn't call them all socialists. And some people want a two-state solution. Some of them want a one-state solution.
Put some names in
A
there.
Palestinian-
Don't be scared.
A
Go on, who you talking
Palestinian,
about?
one second.
Who are you talking
one
about?
second, 1 second. A Palestinian, a free Palestinian state, as in some of them are actually calling for the end of the occupation, but to install add another nation state in the region, for example. Some people are anarchists. Anyway,
Pretty much
but-
socialists. Socialists are anarchists.
yeah, I think a lot of people call themselves socialists now, but they're not really connected ideologically to like the original socialists. So it becomes confusing. So if you just say, social justice warriors, you may have a very large coalition of people who they don't have the same ideology, but they're just united temporarily on the
Ceasefire.
very
one-
clear, genocide that's going on that needs to
Mm.
stop. And Muslims enjoying that as well, because on this topic, it seems we're in agreement that this has to stop. And for most people, this is how activism is. It is knowingly or unknowingly uniting with people who agree with you on specific subjects, as opposed to ideological purity, that we will ally only with people who agree with us in terms of our worldview and outlook. And the end game, what are we going towards, as opposed to what's the event right in front of our eyes right now.
Look.
And because of this, if we put this
Mhm.
together, and this is why I appreciate how you're saying you're calling them pacifiers, is Islamically speaking, what is the end game? Islamically speaking, what's supposed to happen? What's supposed to happen is not on two states. It's not another new nation
But
state.
before that, look, what is actually wrong with the two-state solution? Because like I made this claim that they're hijacking the Islamic cause. Now, in that question, there's an assumption that a two-state solution, what these socialists are calling for, is un-Islamic. Why though? Why do you think it's un-Islamic? Or do you?
Well, accepting occupation is haram. Being ruled by kuffar is haram anyway in the first place.
Because
Giving up-
let's get it cleared. Accepting a two-state solution is accepting.
At least 78% of Palestine to remain occupied. At least 78%.
Hmm.
That's not going to the details of being, demilitarized and all these other details, which all violate so many principles in the Sharia, like one of which being that the disbelievers have authority or power over you, which is not allowed. And then you're gonna end up with another secular state anyway. It's gonna be ruled by. No, they're probably gonna give it to the liberal PLO.
Yeah, but then how can Muslims attach themselves to such an un-Islamic solution? Is it just because of ignorance? Or is it because they don't find anyone else? When they look online, the people that are making the most noise and they have the most, let's say, succinct message is the ones calling for a two-state solution.
No, I think it just comes down to you're not thinking about like I said, the end game. So you're not thinking about what needs to happen. You're just thinking about it's firefighting. How do we respond to this immediate symptom?
But can you blame them? Because they are seeing a genocide
I'm not
happen.
going into that. I'm just explaining, asking for my thoughts. Yeah, so Islamically speaking, two-state solution is obviously hard on. A one-state solution may not be as obvious to other people, but when you realize it's more division and another secular state, because that's the US is not just going to say, okay, and you can have an Islamic state.
It's accepting the American model for the world.
More nationalism and all of that. Then obviously that's haram as well. So then when you say, okay, I'm going to focus my activism on having an Islamic state, and then you realize, well, actually the Palestinians can't do that, they're under occupation, or there has to be unity with other Muslim countries. We have to start, calling for the toppling of the overthrowing of all these puppet regimes and establishing an independent Islamic state, which will then liberate Palestine.
But it seems like
Yeah,
this is easy to say. It's very
Cool.
sloganistic. Like to say, oh yeah, an Islamic state is the solution. We need to unify all these countries around. How do we actually go about doing it? Because that's what Muslims want to know.
But yeah, cool. Those are details. But
Mm.
I'm saying, when you realize this is the correct answer, it's the correct answer, and you put your efforts into calling everyone else to move towards that, and you put a lot of effort into that, obviously then the USA will try to.
But I think the Ummah understand that, because we saw that in the beginning. They were calling for the Muslim armies to move as a unified army in a sense. Yeah, even if it's implicitly in what they were in their message, they were asking for the Muslim armies, plural, to move.
That's
So
fine.
they understand
when
that. But what happened? They lost steam is because they saw one group of people calling for a ceasefire, and they were so succinct in their call, and they were so steady in their call, so sustained in their call, and the other one, it lost steam. So therefore, you know what? One is actually calling for an action that I can see. Let me jump on board with that. I feel like when it comes to calling for an Islamic solution, the Islamic state, where we unify all these countries, the details aren't clear. And there is, this end game that you talk about, I don't think it's clear in everyone.
Ceasefire, we're not against a ceasefire. Ceasefire is just not a solution.
There's nothing wrong for it, nothing wrong in calling for it temporarily.
Well, no, but ceasefire is temporary.
Hmm.
Think about it. Ceasefire is temporary. Anyway, that's what a ceasefire is. It is temporary. It's not a solution. So yeah, stop the war. Then what? Stop the fighting. Then what? Not stop the war. It's not a war.
So now the details.
Yeah.
Some of the details. When it comes to calling for this Islamic solution, unification of the Islamic lands and liberation of Palestine, how do we even go about doing that? Because like we mentioned with other Muslim countries, when they want to attack, the fear is that the US might get involved. So how does the Muslim countries or the Muslim people now go ahead with this solution? Because what's to say that the US is just going to come and just...
Okay, now if we want, that's an entirely different podcast now, and we should have that conversation.
Definitely, we need to sit down again and really discuss the details of how this Islamic state looks like and how it will liberate Palestine, inshallah. We need to see some of those details, but Jazakallah khair for joining me today. And with that, we've reached the end of our first episode of The Muslim Opinion. Jazakumullahu khairan for being part of our community. Until next time, keep seeking the truth, and remember, as Muslims, what you need isn't always what you want. Like, comment, du'as, and share. Assalamu alaikum.